Hello Vikings, my name is Mrs. Hampton and I'm here today to talk to you about evaluating internet resources. You know, it's pretty important to know how to evaluate your resources because there is a lot of stuff out there on the internet, and unfortunately a lot of it is false or not good information. So you need to know what you can use and what's garbage. I kind of see it like you're a detective. A detective going to investigate a robbery scene, for example, is going to collect all the evidence he can before he decides who's guilty. He's not going to choose just one or two clues and then stop because he thinks he can make an accurate assessment of who did it. He's going to keep looking and he's going to get the entire picture. And it's really the same thing with your website. When you look at a website and you're trying to decide if it's good or not, you want to get all the information before you make a decision. One or two clues might actually steer you in the wrong direction, so you need the whole picture. Okay, so let's look at what kind of questions you need to ask and what you need to look for. First of all, you need to look for who did the site, who created it. Is it a personal website, or is it affiliated with an organization or a school or the government? Who is it associated with? You know, if we have a guy who is really interested in bats and he just makes a website about bats on his own, that might not be as good a source as if there's, the North American Bat Institute, who might have better information. So you need to look at who did it, and are they qualified to write on that subject? Are they qualified to have posted this information? You know, if it's a personal website and it's by a guy who just happens to really like Batman and he's writing about bats, I probably wouldn't look at that site for information. But if it's a personal website made by a guy who happens to be a researcher at the University of Texas and has a PhD in bat research, then maybe I'm more likely to read his stuff. Okay? Look at the site extension. It can give you a clue. .gov is going to be a government agency. .edu is going to be a school, and only those people can get those extensions. But a .com or a .org, anybody can get. So now this is where, like I said, you have to have all the pieces to the puzzle. If you see a .com or a .org, there's a lot of really great sites out there that have .com, .org addresses. Just because they have that doesn't make it not legitimate. But it just means that you need more information about it. Okay? Do you recognize the author or their work? That's kind of important. And, the guy sitting in his living room writing a website about bats, you may not recognize him, but if he's a professor at UT, you recognize UT. So that gives you a connection and gives you something that you recognize that you know is a legitimate institution. If you saw a news article from CNN, you might think more about that than maybe a news article from a publication you've never heard of before, for example. Okay, so look at who first. Then I want you to look at why. Why was the site written? Was it written just to give information out, share information with the world, educate the public? Was it written to try and convince you to do something or take some action? Or was it written to try and convince you of a certain political view, maybe? That may make a difference in whether you use that as a source. And not that all these different situations would cause a site to have wrong information necessarily, but it might not give you the full picture of the information. Sites that are trying to convince you to buy their product, for example, they might only say the good things about such and such chemical and not give you any of the bad side effects to that chemical. So you might need to do a little bit further research. You want to make sure you get the whole picture. One of the things that can help you figure out why a site was created was if you look at the links, or you look at the advertisements on the site, because those will give you some clues as to why that site was created. If you see all political advertisements and they're all for one direction or the other, that might be a hint that this page might be a little bit biased in their information. It might not, but you have to make that determination. Also check to see if it's a site that's made just as a joke. Is it a site made for humor? Is it a site made as a parody or satire? There's a lot of these out there now, and it's kind of funny to me because information pops up, for example, in my Facebook feed all the time that isn't true at all, and people just tend to believe it because it looks like it's coming from a legitimate news agency or something, and they think that it's true. And there's a lot out there that people just create to be funny. If something looks odd to you, or like it doesn't add up, or maybe it's too funny or too impossible to believe, you might want to check it out based on a website like Snopes, SNOPES.com. They kind of debunk urban legends and myths and things that go around the internet virally, and they kind of will tell you whether they're actually based on truth or whether they're fictional. And check out the links on the site and see where they go. Our little guy who's in his living room writing a website about bats, if he's linking to all sorts of other comic book characters, and he's clearly a Batman fanatic, and you can tell that based on the links that he's using, maybe that's not a source you want to use, whereas our professor might have links that go to the North American Bat Protection Association or something like that. Okay, so check out the links they're going to too. That gives you the purpose. Next, you want to check out where did they get their information? Do they tell you or not? A lot of sites will put information out there. They got it somewhere, but you don't know where it came from. No idea. You really need to find a site that tells you where they got their information. A lot of times, oh, please excuse my air conditioner, that was really loud. A lot of times sites, news articles, don't cite them in a specific bibliography. They might not list their sources separately, but a lot of times you'll see links directly to the places where they got their information, and that's also kind of a way that they acknowledge where they got their sources. So check for those kind of things too. And then you need to look at how. Okay, and this has to do with what the website looks like. Does it look professional? Does it look like it was very intentionally made? Or does it look like it was created overnight by a guy in his living room? Does it have good structure? Does it have good organization? Is there a clear way to navigate in the page? Does it have good design? And then, is the information usable to you? Is the language, too far above your level or too far below? Was it written for early elementary students? Because you might not want that information any more than you would want something that's written for college students. You want something that's on your level, okay, so that it's usable to you. Look for something with pictures or charts and graphs, because those are great things to include in your research and to include in your research paper. So look for all of that stuff. And then you want to look for when was the site last updated? Is it current? And this is often a big deal because so much information now changes very quickly. You don't want something that's outdated. You don't want information that's incorrect because it's out of date. So check to see when it was last updated. Usually at the very bottom of the page near the center, you'll see when the site was last updated, or you'll see a copyright information that should have the current date on it. And you might even see something like blog entries or something like that are dated, or the article would have a date on it. Check to see what that date is. And then you need to decide, is that important in the topic that you're researching? Because you might be researching a topic where the information hasn't changed a lot in 10 years, and so it's still valid information. But if you were doing a project about technology, you would probably want something that was a little bit more recent. Another way to check the when is by checking out the links on the site to see if they all work. I was on a site just the other day, and every single link in the middle of the body of the text was broken because it was so out of date and it was so old that none of the sites that it linked to even exist anymore. And that was a big red flag that said, hey, you do not need to use this source of information. You can find something more current. And I did. I let that one go. And then finally, the last thing you want to check out is the what. Okay, so does the site contain fact or opinion? You know, sometimes people are really good at disguising opinions as facts, and they might make you think that their opinions are facts. So really investigate that, and again, use all of your other clues to help you decide. Look at those advertisements, look at the other links on the site. Most importantly, can you verify those facts somewhere else? And this is the part that people don't like to do, but it's probably the most important. You should be able to find the facts that you found on one website in several other places. And they should be in places that are unrelated to the website you're looking at. You know, if you have 3 websites and all of them have exactly the same information on it, and they all link to each other, chances are pretty good 2 of them got their information from the third one, right? Or all 3 of them got their information from the same place. That doesn't mean that that information is correct just because 3 different people used the same set of information and they all linked to each other. Look for separate, totally separate, unrelated websites that all appear valid in their own right, that the who checks out and the when checks out and the why checks out. And all of them are unrelated and the facts remain the same, and that means that your information is probably pretty good. Oh, the spelling and grammatical errors is next. And I'll tell you what, this is one of those red flags that I will immediately shut down a website and not even look at it again if it has spelling or grammar errors, because that is a huge red flag that it was not done professionally and it was not proofread. And so I will not use anything from a site with those kind of mistakes. And then lastly, does the site have information that you need? You know, if you have already got a website as a resource that has given you information X, Y, and Z, and only information X, Y, and Z, and then you find a new site and it gives you information X, Y, and Z, and only information X, Y, and Z, it didn't really add anything to your research, so it doesn't really give you a whole lot. The one thing that you can do is compare the 2 sites that you have that give you the same information to decide which one is a better source, so you know which one to keep and which one to toss, but you don't want to keep both of them. You want to look for new sources that give you additional information that's going to be useful for your research. All right, so that's all I have for today. Remember to go through all of your questions, who, what, when, where, why, how, etc., and ask those questions, and best of luck to you as you navigate the internet. Have a great day.